Hey folks, Darren with Fervent Astronomy. Today we're going to take a look at the counterweight kit for the LighTrack II and go over a couple common questions that I get via email and phone calls and that type of thing, and just basically give you an overall look at how you can mount and balance payload on your LighTrack II. So here we have the counterweight kit itself. It consists of a Vixen style clamp, a central hub, and a two-piece bar. And this two-piece bar is connected on the inside, and you won't really be able to see it, but with a long Allen screw or bolt, and it's got a tongue and groove connection with the bar here to make sure that it's very sturdy. And you might have seen me remove the toe saver. This screws into the end of the bar here, and that keeps your counterweights from potentially falling off and breaking your toes. So on the back here is a silicone pad. It might be a different color depending on what generation your counterweight kit is. And I have an older style clamp here. It just has a knob here with a smooth rounded screw. But newer clamps will also have a locking nut that is a hex head set screw, basically, that can go in and give you an extra little bit of insurance there, just if anything were to happen. So this has a 3/8 inch thread on the bottom, and it just threads onto your LighTrack like so. Careful not to hit yourself in the teeth like I almost did. And snugs up nice and tight. Now you have some adjustable levers here which control the RA and deck axes. So here we can loosen up the right ascension, and that lets us move it around. I have mine set quite firm because I usually use quite a heavy payload. And here we can do the same thing with the deck, if I can remember which way screws work. Let's see here. There we go. And that just allows us, with our 360 of rotation around the RA axis. I realize now that I mixed those two up. So this is the right ascension adjustment. And this, of course, is the declination adjustment. All right, so I'm going to grab a counterweight, and we're going to put it on the end of the bar here, and we're going to discuss how to actually balance your payload. Okay, here I actually have two counterweights, and we'll slide these on. Add our toe saver. And here you can see that two weights, the way I have the bar set up, fit comfortably underneath the mount. And when we have a fairly heavy payload on the top here, this is necessary. I typically run with a 102 millimeter aperture William Optics scope, nice triplet, and basically this is where the counterweights balance it out. Sometimes you might find yourself only needing one weight, and you might find that your balance isn't quite where you need it to be. So in this case, let's imagine that we actually needed our counterweight to be here to properly balance our payload. Of course, now we have a bit of an issue. It's running into the housing of the drive box. So, well, what are you going to do? There are a number of different solutions, and some of them involve a little extra expense, and some of them hopefully you can actually get away with for free. So one thing that has been brought up to me a number of times, I guess the folks at Rocky Mountain School of Photography have some videos on LighTrack, which is great. Thanks, guys. And they also recommend adding a little accessory to the LighTrack II here. So I'm going to, let's take this off. And we're going to remove our bar, and we'll show you what these types of accessories might look like. So one common recommendation, and I think this is something that the guys over at Rocky Mountain School of Photography are recommending, is a basically sort of a panorama puck. This is a PB75. I want to say at the time that I bought this, it was under the Kingjoy brand. It's one of those things that's been rebranded 100 times, and you can find it on Amazon, eBay, AliExpress, what have you. But essentially, it is 3/8 on the bottom, 3/8 on the top, and it's got a actually fairly nice adjustable locking screw here, and it basically just turns. Mine's dampened quite well with probably Now Gel or something to that effect, and that makes it not spin and spin and spin, but once you have a heavy load, it actually works quite well. So this is a possibility if you have no other option. You just attach it here, get our bar, and our bar threads on nicely, the same as it would to the top of the LighTrack. We've got our counterweight. And now you can see that we get clearance here above the drive box of the LighTrack. Now, if you have to have your bar set up where you have to have this weight there, this is one option. And there's a second option here, which you might find interesting. Just take this off. Now, I bought a lot of these around Black Friday myself, just because they're pretty useful. This is a Manfrotto Move quick release plate, for lack of a better word. That's what it's meant for. It screws on there. And again, we take our bar here and tighten that on. Now, the nifty part here, and one of the reasons why I bought it, is that it actually can spin 360 and lock fairly easily in any rotation. And it's quite sturdy. So then it just pops right off as well. Now, it is worth noting that while I'm excited about this thing, hence why I bought a bunch of them, I haven't actually tested it in the field yet at the time of making this video, but for what it is, it seems fairly well made, and the exact method that it grips onto this quick release plate seems pretty sturdy. So this is a possibility. Maybe not the exact solution for you, but it is a solution. So we'll just take this off. Whoops. Go find your friend. All right, so now we have our bar again, and I'm going to show you how to adjust the bar in the method that Fornax originally intended. It is worth noting, none of the solutions that we just showed you with the accessories were intended by Fornax in this particular respect. So your mileage may vary. One concern that I do have is that the higher you get your center of mass off of the actual attachment plate here, the more gravity is going to be pulling down on it in whatever orientation it is. And unless you're at the North Pole and straight up and down, there's always going to be some downward force pushing and basically trying to pull that attachment plate right off. Now, it is machined out of a nice grade of aluminum, but given enough force, you could conceivably shear the connection point off. I have seen one case where weakened over time with a lot of movement that it was able to actually become dislodged. So that is something that you do have to keep in mind. It's aluminum, it's not unobtainium. It does have its tolerances that it has to stay in. However, here we have our counterweight, and here we have our hub and our bar. And you'll notice on the bar, there is a flat section that's machined out of one side of it. And right next to the hub on either side is a bushing with a hex grub screw holding it down onto this plate. So we're going to show you how to adjust your bar here. Grab our trusty Allen key, and it's just as simple as loosening these hex screws. Now, I can see I'm going to have to move mine here just to get a better angle on it. All right, so we've now loosened the bushings. Now, the interesting thing here is that these bushings will allow you to move your bar basically anywhere in between those two ends to your flat channel there. So, this is all the way down, but if we need to, we could theoretically slide it all the way in this direction as well. The bar, once you take both the clamp and the extension off here, it's actually completely ambidextrous. It's mirrored, for lack of a better term. That allows you to actually put a second clamp on here and use two optical systems at once. But in this case, the distances would be the same either way. But as you can see here, this gives us a little bit of an adjustment. So let's say we have our counterweight, and perhaps we've got things like this. We've got our bar out this way, and what we really want to do is have our weight here, but when we try and do that, of course, it runs into the mount. So how do you deal with this situation? Well, you can bring the center of mass in towards the central hub or out, depending on your exact situation, and that will necessitate that you move the weight as well. And in this way, you can actually essentially dodge this mirror box, or forgive me, this drive box from the LighTrack II, and perhaps allow you to avoid the problem altogether, and possibly more importantly, avoid the extra expense of having to buy an accessory. I'm always a big fan of never spending money on something you don't have to, because you can always spend it on something that you would rather have instead, like optics or what have you. So that is how you would adjust the bar here. And once you have it at your preferred place, and I have mine marked with some Sharpie marker here just to give myself a landmark. Just tighten it back up. It is important that those set screws line up with the flat portion of the bar. So you are going to want the screw to be contacting the bar at a right angle. You aren't going to want it to come, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, what have you. Just make sure it's up and down. And there you go. You're all set. So I hope you found this useful, or at least, if not entertaining, at least somewhat informative. And I hope that if you do find yourself with the counterweight kit, that you can find a good spot where you can get things balanced without having to then buy another accessory. They're handy to have around for other reasons as well, but like I said, may as well keep your money in your pocket. So thanks much, Darren from Fervent Astronomy. Take care.